I'd like to welcome our listeners to the Healthcare Leadership Excellent podcast this morning. We have an intriguing interview today of someone who is really being a trendsetter within the world of healthcare. I was able, as I always do, to have a great pre-interview with her, and I would like to welcome Dr. Kaur from South Florida to our program today.
Hi, Carl. Hello, listeners. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I'm excited about everything that we're going to talk about today.
So, empowering patients through evidence-based principles. When I first read that, Doctor, when I got some of the intro pieces for the program today, but it was intriguing. But when I talked to you, it was fascinating. So our listeners are in for a real treat. Give us a thumbnail of what brings you to where you are today in your practice, and then we'll kick in with some of our discussion.
So my journey has been, as most professional individuals' journeys, or as most people's journeys, lots of ups and downs. And I'm sure if somebody were to look at my LinkedIn profile or to pull up my CV on some website or even look at my own website, they could learn about where did I go to school and when did I graduate and all those things. And that's great. But I think what's important for our listeners to know is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And you're right, how I got here. I've wanted to be a physician since I was a child, and a lot of physicians say that it sounds cheesy, but it's a calling, just like many other professions. And when you know this is for you, you know this is for you. So I pursued that calling and did the best that I could to get where I needed to be. And that was to graduate medical school, complete a successful residency, and become a doctor, a full-fledged licensed practicing physician. And I continued that with getting really good positions at good prestigious organizations here in South Florida. And it was all great. I was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, rose-colored sunglasses were on. And as the years went by, I realized that healthcare is not all that it's chalked up to be. And it's certainly not what I had imagined it to be as I was growing up and dreaming about it one day. Patients weren't getting the care they were deserving, and I wasn't able to give them that care due to a variety of constraints and regulations that really have nothing to do with medicine a lot of times. So I decided it needs to be different. Something needs to be done, or I leave medicine altogether. And as you probably know, physicians are leaving medicine in droves, and I didn't want to do that. This is my calling. This is all I want to do. So I decided to, that saying where if you can't find it, you build it. I decided to open my own practice and build it the way that I think it should be and give patients the care the way I feel that they deserve it. And so I opened Kaur MD. It's a membership-based practice. We don't deal with insurance companies or their rules or regulations. We deal with directly our patients and prioritize their health more than anything else.
You gave me permission in our pre-call, and can you share the story about your father that was
Yeah.
so resonating for me, and I'm sure it'll be for our listeners.
So it's interesting and coincidental that you bring that up. Tomorrow will be 17 years since he passed. And I feel like what happened with him is what fuels my passion. Obviously, this is a calling and I'm going to pursue it, but there needs to be more to the story than that. My dad was not one for seeing doctors or for routine preventative checkups, just going to the doctor when you had a cold or when something was really, really wrong. And unfortunately, because of that, there was certain conditions that were not caught or not noted early on, and they progressed. They became complicated, turned into cancer. By the time he was diagnosed with cancer, it was too late. He passed just a mere few weeks after being diagnosed, in fact. And even after diagnosis, I don't believe he got the care that he should have because he didn't have a primary care physician who was vested in his health and helped him navigate this healthcare system and what needs to be done. So my passion for giving patients that care and having an advocate for them, helping them navigate, helping them figure things out, whether they have insurance or not. I think that's what really fuels my fire.
Thank you for sharing that. And even 17 years out, it's still poignant. So thanks for being willing to share that. So
Absolutely.
tell me and tell our listeners, um, because people have heard about, I guess, what I would call concierge care. Maybe there's a better term for it.
Yep.
But if I'm a patient of yours, how does it work? What, just give us the details.
It's very, very simple. I know it's a new concept for a lot of individuals, and anything new seems daunting and potentially complicated. But this is medicine the way it used to be, the way I grew up thinking it was going to be. You need a doctor, you go see a doctor. You have a relationship with your primary. Your primary knows your family, knows, what's going on at work, what stresses you, and all of that stuff that is really important to your health should develop into a relationship with your primary care physician. So my patients, we call them members because my practice is a membership based practice. So just like a gym or Netflix, you pay a monthly membership fee and we try to keep it affordable. I know a lot of people hear concierge and they think, oh my God, it's $10,000, $15,000 a year. I can't do that. And we're nowhere near that. I want to reassure people. And that's basically it. You pay your monthly membership fee and you come see me when you need to see me. We do your preventative care that needs to be done. And that's it. It's just really very, very simple. Sometimes I'm at a loss of words of describing it because it is so simple.
What seems to be, what do you think that this isn't more common? Or
It's very,
I
yeah.
may not be aware.
Yeah, it's becoming more common. As you mentioned, a lot of people have heard about concierge medicine and they think of it as something that's just for the affluent or the elite individuals in society who can afford it, and that is really not how it should be. However, we use the word concierge in our practice because more people are familiar with it. Why more practices like mine have not popped up? Well, they're slowly popping up, but why there's not more than there actually is because of insurance companies and government regulations and all that red tape that prevents doctors from just giving care. A lot of times, practices like mine have to take a huge financial hit in order to operate the way that we do because we don't have that guarantee of insurance companies. For instance, when a physician contracts with, let's say, Cigna, Cigna gives them a panel of patients and says, hey, Dr. So and so, take care of these patients. So, in a way, that's kind of like guaranteed income. Not doing it that way and completely relying on word of mouth and goodwill and people needing care, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to make a living. And as I mentioned, it's a huge financial hit. And I think that's the number one obstacle that doctors face. Because I know for a fact there are many, many physicians, even in my local area, that would go this route tomorrow if they won the lottery or if they had absolutely nothing to worry about in terms of finances.
So I want to switch tracks a bit because one of the things that I think our listeners benefit most from is not just the stories of the success, but the thinking behind it. And for someone to take the risks you did and to be successful, I think in our pre-call, I think that someone was you, talked about swimming without the water wings or the floaties. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell us about what it is to think in an entrepreneurial sense. Because whether you're in concierge medicine or a nurse manager in a large organization, I think that way of approaching a problem, thinking bigger than the problem. Tell us about how you think, create, and develop ideas.
So first you have to, or this is what I did, and this is how I've been advised by my mentors. First, what needs to be done is you need to identify what is a problem that can help many people if solved, and do you want to solve it? There's a lot of issues out there that can be tackled for the betterment of society and our communities, but there has to be a passion behind wanting to do it, and sometimes a personal story. Sometimes, like with myself, there has to be more fuel to it. Once you have those two things, I think everything else kind of just falls into place. You got to have the I want to do this and I know it's going to help improve my community and it's going to be a huge problem solver for X, Y, and Z. And then you start to talk to other people. You have to have a network. You talk to other people and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or how about this? And if they're mentors, if they're people who are more seasoned in that particular industry or space, that's great. I had a little bit of that, not a lot, but because this is such a new concept. Um, but a lot of it is having the passion, having the grit, because this It's not easy. Anything is not easy, right? Anything worth doing is not easy. You have to have the grit to keep going on the days when it seems impossible. And those days are more often than not. You have to have a good support system and pen to paper, put down your ideas, see what makes sense, see what's feasible, because you might want to, do fantastic things, but Rome wasn't built in a day. So you have to teach yourself the patience of step-by-step programs. And yeah, there's just, I think I can outline a way of how to do a practice and what you need to do to open a practice and market a practice, but you have to have that internal feeling of this is what I want to do and I'm going to do it.
How do you keep that alive when you're having one of those weeks, one of those days, which turns into one of those weeks where the idea is strong, the revenues are not getting traction yet? How do you keep that vision and passion alive?
You have to remind yourself why you're doing it, but sometimes even that's not enough. And the very candid answer that I'm going to give, because that's my personal experience, is you have to have a support system. You cannot do this alone. So for me, it's my spouse, it's my husband. My parents were business owners, so my mother, friends. You have to have, friends that are just very supportive of what you're doing and can tell you, remind you of why you chose to do this and what the alternative is if you give up. I think that's very, very important because no matter what you do in life, we can't do it alone.
So go a little more into depth on your why. You hit some great detail, but talking about the fire, talking about the village, dig in for us like you did on the pre-call.
So I feel like, honestly, as a physician, I am tired of hearing patients say, I can never see my doctor. My doctor doesn't care. My doctor just spends 5 minutes with me and doesn't even look at me, just looks at the computer. And I feel like, I'm just a number to them. And that really, really, really hurts me because that's not why we go into this. Contrary to maybe popular belief, physicians don't become physicians, majority of us, just for that paycheck at the end of the day. We go through way too much to get to where we are for it to just be about money, especially nowadays, because there's so many ways to make money. And that repeated hearing my patients say those things, I said to myself, there has to be a better way. There has to be something I can do. And that comes from just, wanting to take care of people and wanting to do it the right way and knowing that I can. So why am I letting these people feel this way when I have the solution or part of the solution? I'm not God Almighty or, I'm not a superhero, but I want to do what I can do because I know that's going to make a positive impact.
And so the village you refer to is that support system and those that are around you that can keep focused and helping you along the path.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. On the days that I want to give up and on the days that my grit is absolutely zero, for whatever the reasoning is, I think those are the days that I really thank the universe, thank God for, sending the people in my life that I have. My husband has been an integral part of all of this. He is my essentially silent partner, but more than that, he's my cheerleader. He reminds me of the progress that I have made. So maybe that one day I feel like a complete failure, but then he reminds me, look at how far you've come in building this thing and look at what you've achieved so far. Don't let that don't let the negativity overcome that and discount that because that means a lot more. And then that gives me motivation to get up on the horse and keep going.
So switching to our listening audience in specific right now, um, as a person, because you're still early to mid part of career,
Yep.
um, do you ever, you're familiar with the word imposter syndrome?
Oh, yeah.
I run into that a lot with the clients I work with, especially the younger ones. Uh,
Yep.
what would, and especially for some reason, I work a lot with nursing units. And so the scenario I draw for you is BSN level, has her degree, is phenomenal bedside, done bedside for 3, 4, 5 years, is noticed by leadership as being potential for leader, and in typical healthcare fashion, dumped into a A&M or a nurse manager role with no leadership training and expected to succeed. And she comes and talks to me and says, Carl, I'm in over my head. I don't think I can do this. Some of the nurses I'm supervising are, could be my mother. They're old enough. They don't respect me. They don't like me. Um, could you give some coaching to that individual who I know will be listening to this program of how to work through that?
So I will answer that with a little story of my own that equates to that. So about 5 years after residency, I wanted to make a change. I wanted to not see patients day in and day out in a traditional setting. I wanted to see how else I could help patients. So I was approached by a local healthcare organization to help them lead their transformation into telemedicine for their primary care group. And they said it's an experiment, but we need somebody who's willing to learn and willing to adapt and help us create something that is going to be very meaningful. And I wanted to say, well, I don't have any experience in this. Well, I don't know, but I said yes. I said absolutely yes. And the reason I said yes goes back to that support system, the environment that I personally grew up in, and the mentorship that I've had. My mom in particular has always said, don't ever say no. If there's an opportunity to advance your career or try something different, don't ever say no. Always say yes, because you may not know it at first, but you'll learn it along the way. In this particular opportunity that I said yes to, there was a lot of ups and downs because we were all learning what we were doing. And then the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, not only was I leading the transformation into telemedicine as a whole, but then I was also put in charge by my then CEO to be the lead person and point person for COVID-19 efforts in the primary care group. Now, here's little old me at the time. I mean, I still feel like little old me, but there's little old me trying to teach and kind of mentor and advise physicians who were much more seasoned than I was, whether they were older or not. Their CVs and their credentials were, pages and pages, whereas mine was not at that time. So I felt like, what am I doing? But to me, it was exciting. It was a new challenge. It was something that I could learn from, that I knew I was going to grow from as a professional. And that's kind of how I took it, that if nothing else, even if I fail, and I never like to say that because it's not a failure, it's a learning experiment or a lesson. Even if it doesn't work out, I will have learned something. I will have grown as a physician, and I would have expanded my network. And, if it's something new and I realize, hey, this is the direction I want to take my career, and that's even better. So never say no, just jump in, whether you or not you have the floaties, and you will figure it out. You have the smarts, you have the grit, you have the talent. Don't doubt yourself when it comes to that. But all of that being said, yes, imposter syndrome still does creep in from time to time.
Excellent. Um, there are also, I imagine, in our listening audience today, physicians that are thinking, oh, if I could only do what she's doing. And since there are some financial impacts to going out like you did, um, what would you say to a physician that is wondering if she should leave the profession that she has given so much of her time or his time to developing? What would you say to stay in the game until you can get to a place where you can do what you originally intended to do? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it comes back to, is this a career that still makes you happy? Is this still your calling? Is this still what you get joy from? Because even on my hardest days, I notice that I am the happiest when I have taken care of my patient. And whether or not we solve their problem is irrelevant, but I have given them the best of my care that I can. They were happy with it. They feel, I don't mean to say the word again and again, but they feel cared for. They feel like they have somebody. Those are truly my happiest days. When that stops happening, that's when I'm going to know that this isn't the right thing for me anymore. So the first thing is this still something that makes you happy, brings you joy and fulfillment? And if it is, then there are ways that you can go about it. You can, some people keep a side gig while they're building their practice. Sometimes they find existing practices to join or to go into. it can be hard to leave a position that maybe you've been in for 10, 15 years, maybe because the benefits are great and you don't want to lose those, or you have seniority and you don't want to leave all of that. But you really have to find where your joy is, because as a physician, if you're not happy doing what you're doing, that's going to reflect in the kind of care you give and in your patient's health outcomes. And that can actually be dangerous sometimes, not a good thing.
For people in leadership, let's go back to that incredible story. Talk about being in the right place at the right time or wrong time, depending on how you experience COVID.
Yeah.
Um, what are some leadership lessons that you've noticed in your entrepreneurial track or in your traditional medicine track before you went out on your own? What are some leadership do's or don'ts for that new leader who, again, Carl's opinion here, but we are so lousy at training people in leadership within healthcare because they have it because a person has initials after his name or her name has, in my experience, not exactly shown to be cause and effect for good leadership. My favorite comment was once I was working with a neurosurgery department and they had a new section head. And actually, doctor, the quote was, "Oh, Dr. Jones, he's a great neurosurgeon. He'll make a great leader." It's just kind of not so much, not necessarily. Give us some do's and don'ts for the new leaders that are listening as to things to always do and things to stay away from.
So I And here's where that imposter syndrome comes in a little bit too. I know if I look at my CV, I can certainly call myself a leader. I know I have personality qualities that would, you know, allow me to call myself a leader. But I feel like when I'm actually leading, it's more of a collaborative relationship than a dictatorship, I guess I could say. Listening to the people that you're supporting, because as a leader, you're not just there to tell them what to do. That's really not what a leader is supposed to be, in my eyes. A leader is supposed to be somebody who gathers people, who forms a team, and brings out the best in that team to achieve the goal that they have set forth to achieve. So, listening is very important, listening to each and every member that you support and seeing how their vision or what they're saying can be incorporated into the overall picture and get you to the goal or get the team to the goal where they need to get. Now, when it comes specifically to healthcare, that's a lot more nuanced, I think, because healthcare, of course, it's a science and there's things that we need to do and achieve, but it's also there's a lot of emotions involved and trying to navigate that and different personalities that can be quite difficult. So I feel like as a leader, if you can connect one-on-one with the individuals that you serve that are on your team and reassure them that you're not there to tell them what to do, but to support what they're doing and to advance it, I think that is great. It enhances what people think of you as a leader, and the fact that they will come to you, whether it's a problem or a new idea, that they're going to be comfortable coming to you and saying, "Hey, Dr. So and so, I know you're a great neurosurgeon, and you've done all this wonderful stuff in the OR, but now that we're in the C-suite, or when we're looking at more of the logistics of the practice, I think maybe this and this might work a little bit better." And then as a leader, being receptive to that, not having the ego of saying, "Well, I'm a neurosurgeon. What are you going to tell me to do?" I think that's probably one of the worst things a leader could do. And I fortunately have not had leaders be like that. I've had some great leaders that have turned into mentors. And these are all things, honestly, that I learned from them.
If you had to describe some characteristics of the best leader you've worked for, how would you describe her or him?
Patience, I think, is number one. I think patience is huge. Obviously, being kind, being receptive, being understanding, and being able to see different perspectives. Never a one-sided view of any situation, honestly. That's very, very important.
I want to go back now to some of the details because your practice model just intrigues me. So, how many, because one of the people that I've seen in the past is my PCP, he had 3 to 4 thousand patients in his panel.
Mhm.
Now, math has never been my strong point, but how do you manage because you're a sole proprietor, correct, in
Yep.
regards to
Mhm.
your practice? So how does that work if you get crunched with a bunch of calls in one day? How do you work that?
So fortunately, the type of practice model that I have is very, not very, but it is more conducive to those kind of situations occurring. Now, when you are a physician who's working the traditional model, yes, you're going to have 2 to 4,000 patients on any given day. And when I look back at those days and I think, wow, did I know all 2,000 of my patients or, the individuals that were assigned to me? No, I probably only knew a handful of them, maybe a couple dozen, but intimately, I don't think any of them, to be honest with you. In this type of a practice, we're seeing much, much less number of individuals. So we carry, and by we, I mean, in general, most of the physicians who are in direct primary care or concierge medicine carry anywhere from just 400 to 600 patients. In fact, for myself, I would want to close my panel at about 300. I wouldn't want more than that, because more than that, then I'm not able to handle those days when I have multiple calls or I have multiple patient emergencies or issues. Now, the other good thing is when you have less patients, you can touch base with them more often and you can prevent issues from popping up. So if somebody, wakes up not feeling well, they can text me right away and tell me what they're feeling. So if it is something that's developing into COVID or strep throat, we can try to do at least minimal things to help nip it in the bud if possible. Or if there's somebody who's got a complicated medical history, if they're a uncontrolled diabetic or somebody who just had a heart attack a day ago and now they're having shortness of breath, then I see them as soon as possible so we can mitigate the chances of the risk of it getting worse. So even though there's less patients and we still have emergencies, we have more of an ability to deal with them and honestly to prevent them.
So how do you, let's just say you have that 300. This is just intriguing to me, because I have an excellent PCP right now who definitely has become, I don't know if coach is the right word, but really helping me to stay well, not just
Yep,
when I'm sick, but Carl, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Saw this, saw that. How does that
exactly.
work for you?
Exactly like that. You hit the nail on the head because the whole point and one of the focuses of my practice is prevention. If we can have more touch points with the patient, if we can do the labs that we need to do in a timely manner, we can not only manage the things that they do have wrong, but help them from getting worse. And then we can also guide them in lifestyle measures that are aimed at keeping things healthy and preventing disease from getting worse. So I can coach them and say, hey, did you exercise today? Or, what was your exercise regimen like this week? A little bit of accountability always helps. And if they say, I tried to do this and it didn't work for me, okay, well, then how can we revise it? So it's really having somebody in your corner that's going to help you stay healthy and help prevent disease. And we have more time to do that, honestly.
Excellent. So as we come to the end here, what are any things that you would like to tell our listening audience about you, your practice, or just the medical entrepreneurial path that we haven't talked about so far?
Yeah, I feel like as physicians, we kind of get lost in the way things have been for the last, 20, 30, how many ever years. And we think that there's not a better way. And as patients, we're so inundated with I guess the obstacles that patients are facing nowadays that they also feel like there's not a better way. So I think the one thing I would want everybody to know is that there is a better way. There's a
Mhm.
better way to get care and to give care, and you just got to find what works for you. And it may be not possible right away. You may need to build into it, but it is there, and I do encourage physicians to pursue it if they can. As far as being a entrepreneur and taking on those roles, that really has to be something that's personal because there are physicians who want to do this and are doing this, but they just don't have the business ownership bug or even the desire to do it. So, they end up joining practices instead. But it goes back to that. We'll just say yes to everything, and you'll figure it out later. If you kind of build up the courage and you have the calling and you have the passion behind it, I say try it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Is it doesn't work and you go back to doing things the other way? Sure.
Good point. If somebody wanted to get in contact with you either for medical care there in South Florida or just to pursue any contact with you further, how can they get a hold of Dr. Kaur?
So I welcome, there's a couple ways. Everybody is welcome to visit our website, kkaurmd.com. That has all the contact info on there. If somebody wants to email me personally, you're welcome to do so as well. And that's kkaurmd at kkaurmd.com.
Very good. Doctor, thank you so much for carving time out of your schedule to speak with our audience today. I've really appreciated the time.
Likewise, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to get the word out there, and I hope more physicians build the courage to come down this route.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Have a great week.
You too. Bye bye.